Greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads. And as always, welcome back to our Around the Hearth series. This time we're discussing normal characters in fantastic worlds. So this should be fun, talking kind of about NPCs, but not exactly, because you will be playing them, is kind of how our discussion will be. But before we get into that, announcements. I'll start us off so the others have time to think about what they want to say. I'm Adam L. Spain. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads. As far as announcements that we have from us, end of year is coming up. This is coming out late January, late November. So we are going to be having right about this time next month, a little after, because right on New Year's, we put out our New Year's update. And in it, we will have our actual goal for 2023 and what that milestone will be and what considerations for giveaways we may be doing during that. So that's the plan for that. That's the main thing I have to announce. By now you will most likely have seen the collaboration, seen that we had gone on collaboration last month, early this month when this comes out, to Avenue Studios, and had a wonderful time, I'm sure, with them. I don't really think that there's much else I need to announce right now, so that's what I've got. Dan, anything from you?
Yes, Avenue Studios. You can find us on YouTube, Rumble, and Podcasts. We are live streaming on YouTube now, Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern. Every other Wednesday, we do our Pathfinder 2nd Edition Outlaws of Alkenstar game. And on the off Wednesdays, we do all kinds of fun stuff. Just like last Wednesday at time of recording, we played Fallout Fort Smith with Adam. So you can check that out on our YouTube and Rumble page and podcast. I got to get it up, actually. As of current timeline, it will not be up, but when you watch this, it will. On podcast as well. And then, of course, when Adam comes up, we're going to be doing a special movie night. We do movie nights with our locals and subscribers. I will do a little live stream before that so that everyone can get a taste of what that's like and see what you get if you become a supporter of us over at Avenue Studios. It's a lot of fun. And I think that's about it. Kristen really wants to play a scary game in VR, and we might try and live stream it. She'd really like to do that. So we'll be live streaming it live, but by the time this is up, it'll be in our live stream playlist on YouTube and stuff. So
nice.
Yeah.
I hear good things about Phasmophobia.
I have been hearing good things about that too. My brother has the VR, so we'll have to see what he has. But
True.
Kristen commits to the screams, so she knows, like, she's all in.
All right, so we got to make sure none of the mics peak too high.
Right.
So
put some dynamic compression and limiters on there.
Yeah.
Anyways, hopefully that works out and I get it set up in time, and you'll be able to enjoy it if that sounds like fun. So, and I think that's it.
All right. Okie dokie. That means we are on to Levi, who is doing our shout out this time. So, what you shouting out, Levi?
For Bob World Builder.
Oh yeah.
So, Bob World Builder mostly focuses on D&D 5e, but I'd like to specifically shout out the I Survived 3 Days on D&D rules as part of a, looking at it, 10-episode series going over the potential realism of different aspects of D&D's rules. I chose this video and series specifically because D&D was so important to the TTRPG sphere that the concepts from it got moved into a lot of other games as what was assumed is realistic enough for a game. So these concepts, for one, they're fun videos. He's good at making videos, they're interesting, but also they should be applicable in some of his other content to non-D&D 5e games.
Mm-hmm. All right. I know that I've been watching him for a while too. When I don't know if that was the first one or not. I think his walking one was the first one I saw. But yeah, good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, with that shout out done, unless you guys have any other announcements, all right. Let's start talking then about normal characters in fantastic worlds. And why don't you pull up a chair by the fire, because this is coming out in November, you might want to, and warm yourselves by it while we discuss and grab our favorite beverages to drink. So, normal characters in fantastic worlds. Do you guys want to start, or you want me to start for y'all?
I feel on the low end of this, so I'm going to be gleaning from what you guys have to say, I think. So go for it.
All right. Okay, then. So, for last time we talked about epic stories without epic levels, and a lot of different aspects and ways that you could work that. And then we chose this one beforehand because we were like, well, what about playing normal characters or playing NPCs or classes or other things like that before your heroes, like non-hero characters in these worlds? And I think this is, if you've been in TTRPGs for any kind of amount of time, you're probably going to come to the point where you're like, yeah, I'm an epic hero, but what if I wasn't? And that is okay. You are in good company. Most have thought that too. I would say that if you want to do that, there are ways to do it. There are actually systems that work around that and have that as an idea, or at least modules that do. I don't have any to name for you right off the top of my head, unfortunately. But there are some that deal with characters becoming a hero and using those pre-levels as a start. And I think that's a good way to kind of dip your toe into this idea of normal characters in fantastic worlds. Because a hero isn't a hero until they become one type of situation. There are some that are raised to be heroes and stuff like that, but until they do that, they're just another person. They're just another NPC. They're another person trying to live their life in this world. And I think that's one of the reasons why people like it and like the idea of it once they start investing in the games that they're playing. They start to feel that way because it becomes important to them to be like, well, what did normal people do? Like, I'm here, I'm the hero, but what is everybody else doing? So, trying to figure out what your characters did beforehand. And we talked about this in another chat. I'm not sure which one, but if you know, you can tell me in the comments below. Of playing characters at like half the level of a normal level 1 NPC and having them as children or something like that, and the having you as the players play out that first shaping moment of them working together to become who they would become later. This is one of our older chats that we mentioned this because Kane was with us in the chat when we did.
Oh yeah.
So, because
didn't we also have a thing about talking about actual ages, and one of them was a dwarf who was still a kid when we were adults later on?
Right. Yeah. That was the idea of, and I think this was actually what Kane was referencing when he was messaging in the chat before, the Discord chat. The thing we mentioned before was the group may have grown up and you play their pre-heroic life and an adventure that happens in it when they had their dwarf friend growing up, and because dwarfs age at a different rate and stuff, or at least in my opinion they should, it makes more sense, but they grow or age up in a different rate. They all were of the younger races, the more fast-growing races, and they had them as a friend, and they all grew up and went away. Well, they hear that he's in trouble again, and to him, he's not old enough to be an adult yet. But to them, they're adults now, and they have become heroes, and they have to go back and save their friend again. And that can really help invest people into a setting when they play as the kids that grew up with him, and then they play again to save him, and there's that built-in investment for those players in those characters. And this can happen almost anywhere within a story that you need it to. And that's one way you can have normal characters in a fantastic world. Their friend is a normal NPC dwarf, and they may go away and maybe they have grown up into an NPC, or maybe they've grown up into a hero character. It doesn't really matter. They've got to go help their friend. So you can play this as any way you want to. But they could be, a level 1 human, but not necessarily a level 1 hero, or level 1 young race, but not necessarily a level 1 hero. So there's lots of fun ways you can play with this idea.
Mm-hmm. I've been really, you were thinking about talking with the kid stuff. I really would like to run a game in the Attack on Titan setting. Starting in the underground, kind of like Levi's backstory of like starting in the underground, where the stakes seem high to the kids because they're surviving and trying to, just eke out this life in the underground, but they maybe get access to black market, mobility devices, and then you grow into getting out there and maybe becoming scouts and having to face titans, but you're not a superhero. You're just a person, and you have this cool gear that lets you even have maybe a chance. Having that high death rate too, and I don't know. I've been very interested in seeing about playing that off, and I think it vibes more with the old school like Conan style games where everything's really deadly. Like your character probably will die. So I don't know, having not had experience that as much. I've been cautious about trying to get into that. But I don't know what your guys' thoughts would be on that, because I think it kind of goes in that direction of maybe starting off like, because as Adam, you were explaining, I was picturing like being in the village or something, being small, getting that idea of the normal life. And then I was thinking about last chat, Levi mentioning kaiju, and then all of a sudden something like that comes in. That's just, there's the fantastical. It's like, wait, I've just been doing like challenge events to get all the chores done today, or like this bandit on the road that's just another dude, and we got to deal with him. But and then all of a sudden it's like, and giant deity being. It's not trying to kill us on purpose. It's just passing through, and where it steps on, it's just too bad for you, sort of thing,
My cabbages!
Like the cabbages. So I'm thinking that to me, I really am intrigued by is setting that precedent of the small scale, and getting invested in that world and that space, and then bringing in that fantastical element that to give that just complete separation of scale and power.
Okay.
I don't know. Those were my thoughts as I was listening.
Okay.
Yeah. So a specific thing I'm going to say, anything that you're going to want to do if you want to play a high mortality game. Obviously, we say it a lot, set expectations.
Yeah.
And then you specifically have everyone, like you don't just make one character.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right? Actually, in this case, this is one of those times where like rolling up stats works really nicely, because there's just a like, hey, you're rolling up like 10 kids each.
That's an interesting point with rolling. That almost feels like they're actually being born too, in a way,
Yeah. And it's like, these are the 10 kids that you have the potential of playing between, who, like, depending on how things go, some of them are going to have to stay in the civilization area because there has to be enough food for people to exist, and some people are going to have to go and hunt titans to keep them away so you can live.
Or at least build some kind of deterrent.
Yeah, however you go about that. The core point be like risking their lives, being the non-heroic need to be heroes. As I've times jokingly referred to with Rochelle, sheet level heroes. Because you don't have a proper cape.
No capes.
Well, you tried to give yourself a cape, but all you have left over sheets.
I love that.
Capes are pretty handy though. Like, I like my capelet that I wear. I wear it unironically. I like my capelet.
Yeah, but you don't fly.
I was just gonna say that.
Hey, you don't know that.
That's true.
You've not seen me.
Well, if you do fly, be careful, because capes flutter around and can get snagged and could choke you, and that would be bad. And I prefer you to not get choked out by your capelet. So you do not wear it while you fly.
And wear a helmet with a face mask.
The trick is, don't make it too long. Don't try to be Spawn. You are not Spawn. Don't try to be Spawn.
True.
His cape
just have a nice little shoulder windbreaker
on his mind.
I love it.
But yeah, I think for a high mortality game, it's like you want to make a community as opposed to a person. For one, it adds more pain and weight when you have to dig deeper into it.
Right.
But it also gives the person more people that they're invested in, so that way they don't have one character die, and then the game doesn't matter to them anymore. They're still tied in.
Right. Yeah, that's...
I think that the word you used earlier, Dan, was good, because you said these stakes, the stakes of something. We can forget when we're playing these big fantasy games and these big epic levels and stuff like that, that the stakes aren't actually any different for an adventurer than they are for someone trying to eke out survival out in the wilds. Because survival is survival wherever you find it. And that's why you can have you can feel the same type of drama in a small setting, like a town that's trying to get by, trying to eke by on the frontier. And especially those frontier towns, they make excellent settings for it. That idea that survival is is what you're fighting for, just like the adventurer is fighting for their survival. Now, it is understandable that the way you're fighting is a lot safer, and that's fair. But the thing you're fighting for is the same. And when you frame it that way to your players, and with that in your mind, you realize, man, these challenge events are important for them. Like, if you don't get enough milk, you don't eat. If you don't get something on the hunt, your family could starve. And that, especially if you're playing the dad or the mom, the parents, or even a patriarch of a family a patriarch or matriarch of a family trying to just keep everybody working together and keep things going smoothly, it becomes dramatic, and the stakes are then felt deeper, because that's not NPC boy A and NPC boy B. That's Alan and Brett, your grandkids or your kids, and they're hungry and they have nothing to eat. Somebody's got to get them food. And so those stakes can become very real to somebody playing it. And that's if you want to have that more gritty style to it, which there's different hacks, and they're not generic. They do have character and flavor to them, but they are system agnostic supplements that you can get. I have one called Into the Weird or something like that.
Oh, yes.
And it was all about going into the woods, the grim, dark woods, and finding things that are important for your survival and doing hunts by the moon's phases and stuff like that. And giving those characters something like that, they can be low-level characters. They don't have to be high-level characters. But you're still telling a story that is epic in their scope, because scope matters. If you were to try and tell a story like fighting off a citywide crime syndicate, that's not going to be a drop in the bucket to some kind of angelic level entity that's come down and you're like, oh yeah, okay, so you saved a city. All right, I'm up here saving planets.
Yeah, bully for you.
Yeah, it's all about scope. Every adventure is all about scope, which kind of leads me into another way you can play up this normal characters in fantastic worlds and telling epic stories without epic levels, which we did last time, playing a borrower's style game.
There's actually a fun little indie system for it.
Oh, really?
For specifically inspired by the borrower.
J-Face
Elfin Folk
Games covered one too.
Ooh, nice.
And I don't remember what it is right now. But so Elf Folk, like you said, J-Face Games covered Elfin Folk. And then J-Face Game covered one too. I'm sure there's more, but there is a distinct attraction to that type of thing. I am attracted to that type of a game where you can take your...
Like, cats are terrifying.
Yes, cats are dragons. So
Yeah.
I think that actually was a very fun and thematically appropriate thing when The Secret of Nim called the cat dragon, because that's what it was to the rats. If you go back to The Secret of Nim, rewatch it, it's worth it. The cat's name is Dragon. For reason.
That's
for
very...
real reason.
Yeah, that's nice.
So you can get a lot of fun out of games like that. And again, it's all about scope. It's about the way you're framing your setting. Because if you were to look at The Secret of Nim in the cosmic setting of wherever that would be, I don't know, it doesn't mean anything. It's a rat's nest in a rose bush. Doesn't matter if the rats are sentient and sapient. That doesn't matter. It's a rat's nest in a rose bush somewhere on some planet out in Milky Way galaxy. But because it's personal, because you're attached to the characters, it makes all the difference.
So I want to just give a tip on specifically playing up those family dynamics. Something I have found works wonderfully is, so if you have like this person's family like is the breadwinner for one family, and like this person like has a spouse or right, and they have their own individual family dynamics. Pulling in your fellow players to roleplay characters within other people's families helps really bring the NPCs alive, instead of you trying to like shadow puppet with yourself as like 5 different people that they're talking to. And it makes it so that the whole table is also invested in the family lives of the other people at your table.
You could do...
I've done it in game, and we've had so much time just RPing family dynamics. It was a great time.
That's awesome.
Give me back my... No, it's mine.
Well, like, for example, the uncle who adopted her because her parents died from a plague that happened in the place, right? He didn't super get her and thought that she was bullying a boy that she was actually trying to flirt with.
Sounds about right.
So it was like a whole dynamic of like,
girls Dan likes, yeah.
Yeah.
part of it was that he only heard snippets and pieces, so she was generally being more or less nice, but it worked out well, and we had like we had one person playing the uncle, one person playing the uncle was like the PC.
Okay.
And then we had other people playing both of the other NPCs, of both the like village boy and the niece.
Yeah.
And they were going at a community event, and it was a whole thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's just a good way to keep everyone involved and invested, because if something that can happen accidentally when someone's like, "Ooh, I want to play this character with like a notable family presence," is that if other people aren't involved, they might be like, "Oh, family session time," and then they zone out of it.
Right. Yep.
And way you can
even if they're not trying to be disrespectful.
Right.
Sure. Right.
I think you could also play up that idea too if you had multiple families. Say, okay, who's going to play the mom, the dad? Playhouse basically is what you're doing. But the house has to survive. Like, you are playing the house, and you can have more than one that you play. Like, maybe this session, or this hour, or however you break up your game. This time, this hour, you're playing the McCoys over here. Next hour, you're playing the Hatfields. Next hour, you're playing the Stewards. Next hour, you're playing the Andersons. If you have 4-hour games. And what you do is you build up an entire city. You end up building up an entire village, I should say, or a throp. You end up building up that whole community, and everybody's played them. And then you can have them come into that setting and be like, maybe later down the road when they're playing other characters and they're actually doing some heroic stuff, they hear about the throp of Hattlesborough or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, Hattlesborough? What do you mean? That's where what's his face lives, and this person, and this person, and this person. We've got to go save Hattlesborough. We can't let anything happen to Hattlesborough. Little Stacy Niles lives there, and I played Stacy. Stacy can't die.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can really build up a setting by taking those. It could be one shots. It could be whatever you want to do, but playing normal characters in fantasy worlds. I think it also works fun if you want to. If you played up the idea of being like a chronicler maybe, or something like that, and you're the group that's following around the heroes, trying to figure out everything they've been doing and stuff like that. And that's a fun way to play it for a session or two if you want to.
I was thinking about too, like going with the Attack on Titan setting, because Matt Colville has that stuff for followers, which could also be another way to do it, where you have your main character, and then, like I'm thinking from the Attack on Titan, the group of orphans or the kids in the underworld, you have your main character that you want to start with, and then you have these other characters that you run as well. And maybe once in a while, you have offshoot stories and do a one shot just to take a break from your main character and play this other character. So you're always rolling for them and maybe RPing a little bit with them, so that you do have this collection of characters that if one of them dies, most likely you have these other characters. Well, who are you interested in? Or possibly you could end up swapping as you start to get more interested in one that was designated a follower. You could transition to that and make your main one just move back to the shadows. That could be a good way, because what we're getting at is the investment. You want investment in those characters, so when characters do die, it means something, and you also have something to move right into. Like Levi mentioned at the beginning, moving into another character, you're not just like, well, now my character's dead. Do we have to start all over again with hello, how are you? Why am I here? What's all that stuff has already been set up over time.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the older games used to make 3 or 4 characters. And sometimes the entire party had 3 or 4 characters that they were running through the dungeon, and the dungeon would kill off a few of them. And so you'd come out with a more moderate size of party. And then that party could then level up, spend their gold to level up, and then go back in later. And who maybe get some more hirelings. Hirelings are actually useful in that purpose. And I'd say that it's important it kind of brings up the idea, well, where do heroes come from? I mean, sure, you've got people like paladins and clerics and wizards that are specifically devoted to that, but your average person, there's a reason that most characters you would see in stories would qualify as just fighters, because they're average people that do above average things, and it's either through training or different things like that they end up doing that. But they don't start that way. And if you wanted to, you could really... Now, I've actually had the idea in my head, and I'm not sure how I would run it specifically, but the idea that having an entire town that the players enter, and everybody says, "I'm the butcher," and if they're asked their name, they just say, "I'm the butcher. That's who I am." And everybody in town is what they do.
Okay.
And it's not normal for
I
the
wanted
setting.
to double check that you didn't mean that they all said "I'm the butcher" specifically, or if you meant that they all referenced their job title.
Their job is what they do. So, like the farmer would say, "I'm the farmer," and the other would say, "I'm the butcher."
Yeah, okay, I get you now. I had to check.
Yep. And you can either do it where the players are those things, or they meet those people. But it's not really it doesn't really fit into necessarily what we're talking about right now, because you would build a mystery around it and stuff like that. But it does feed into the idea that normal people become greater things when they are called, when they answer the call to do so. And even people who wouldn't think they could do something, they put into a position, in a situation, oftentimes they can rise to it. And you can play that up in those type of situations when you're not epic levels, or when you're not even trained to do something. You can play that up a bit. One of the modules that is run is, I forget which one it is again. They have it where you're a bunch of villagers that got attacked by this and by the antagonist, and you've lost a lot of family and stuff like that. So you, the villagers, are going to deal with this because no one else will. And you go in and you play as those villagers doing that, and when you come out, you are the heroes. And you've become the heroes, not because you were trained for however long in this great thing, but you rose to the occasion to become what was needed of you. And that can be a very satisfying thing to happen as either the end of that particular character's story arc, or the beginning of a real settlement. Like when we were talking about the guards, running guards effectively, those guards going out and coming back with a dragon's hoard worth of gold, that would change that town entirely. How would that play out? Who would then be, who would you go and hire? Now that you have the guards set up, they don't become a guard. They're not a guard anymore.
Right.
They're more like a warlord or a governor of the area now, because they've got the money to back up what they're saying. And the king may not be able to, or whoever is ruling at the time in that area might not have the gumption to be able to go against them. And so they establish their own little fiefdom. And do your characters become good? Do they submit to this new lord that has risen up? So you can play either the guards, or the players can play the villagers, and how are they dealing with this? So there's a lot of fun drama that could be had there, depending on what type of game you want.
Yeah.
All right.
That's great.
So we had a whole long preamble, so I'm not sure how much time we've got left, but let's come to our kind of wrapping up thoughts. What are you guys thinking for your final thoughts on this particular subject?
I say that even if you do not specifically use this concept of how do you make sure that relatively normal people are, like, if you don't take the time to play as normal otherwise people, if you always want to play as heroic, I think it's really important to take the lesson of making sure you are thinking about the investment in the people and the world beyond just the heroism itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because heroism is needed to save people and to help people, not just to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have people you care about for it to be meaningful.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely more meaningful when the players have actually played the people that they care about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I think a lot of games you could definitely do, like, you know, this was the kid, like, this adventuring party was like a club of kids in their treehouse, and you play out their treehouse days.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yep.
you can do a lot of cool, fun, wholesome stuff. And then make it less wholesome later, but, you know.
There you go.
Yeah. That's good. I think the biggest thing for me I'm noticing is the hesitancy to want to run multiple, not in like a bad way, and just like, will people be able to handle that? And that's just because of my perspective coming in post the old style, you know? So getting people, welcoming people, and being okay to try the new way of like run a bunch of characters or have followers, or, you know, play the family and play each other's kind of other parts of their family and stuff like that. Give that be okay to try that out, and as always, you know, making sure everyone's on board before you dive into it. But there shouldn't be any reason to worry about that. It would actually add a lot to it, but it's just I haven't done it, so I'm like, how will that go?
There's
I know
only
I would
one way
enjoy
to
it.
find out.
So yeah, same thing I always say. Try it. Tell us how it goes.
There you
Quick
go.
note, normally these characters are not very mechanically complex, so running multiple is not as hard as it would seem.
Right. That's
Very
a fair
true.
point too. Yeah. Yeah. Keep it simple, stupid, right?
Yep. And that can leave it open to people feeling more comfortable, like Levi's saying. People can feel more comfortable knowing, oh, it's just an NPC that I'm running. That's not that I don't have to worry about if I've got this many smites left, or if I've got this many spell slots left, or if I've used this many superiority dice or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Right.
I'm fine.
I've got a baton and I've got some food.
I got my pitchfork, and I need to pay the cows. And that's what I gotta do. Strength check. Man, you would get some buff farmers, I'm telling you. But that's beside the point at the moment. We're trying to sign out. I would say that don't be afraid also to build upon that borrower/anthropomorphic idea for like a mouse guard game would be great to build into that normal creatures, in this case, in Fantastic World, or something like a Hollow Knight themed one. That would be fun. You know, insect themed. Those are fun. So feel free to use those as well.
And I'll throw out one last thing, more for like maybe a different chat sometime, in this same vein of taking it now, going from the small village stuff and the smaller scale story, and now bringing in some fantastical element like Shadow of the Colossus level. I'd actually be interested in like talking out a little bit more on the mechanical side, like Levi was hinting at with skill checks and stuff, like what are some good ways to handle that, where you have these more normal low level characters facing off against something vastly beyond them. So that's something I'd be interested in the future of talking about too, because I think we've got this good foundation now of the smaller scale still being equivalent to the epic, and then how do you maybe throw in a fantastical thing like that?
All right. Well, seeding those ideas for a future chat. Seems like a
below
good...
if you've done it.
Yes.
Right?
Comment below. Just comment below. Just do what you want.
Just do it.
All right. Well, I think that's everything for this chat. Unless y'all have anything to add, I will tell the people to like, comment, share, subscribe, and you can look on YouTube or Rumble for myself, for the In a Planar Crossroads, where you're at, or Avenue Studios. And you can support either one of us with Patreon or locals, or by contacting us directly. So if you want to support Dan over there at Avenue Studios, or myself over here at the In a Planar Crossroads, send an email, reach out, something like that. I think that's everything. So,
cool.
As always, have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
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 This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
All right. I am back.
Cool. I have stayed. I also just didn't have a planned response for I am back, so that seemed like a fitting parallelism. Hildegard von Bingen, or Bingen? Depends on how you pronounce it. They just do a bunch of medieval-y covers of pop songs. Well, not just pop, but popular
Right,
songs.
I think you mentioned that when we were doing the House of the Rising Sun one, right?
I think I did.
Yeah.
It's like I thought I had brought them up before.
Hildegard von Blingen. Blingen. Yeah.
Sorry, my wife put up some shelves and she was very proud of herself, so she wanted to show me.
Okie dokie.
That's fair. It's like, hey, I did a good thing. Look.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that otter meme. Look what I made. Where the otter's holding up its baby.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Hopefully she did it okay. We'll find out if it falls down.
Yep.
Yeah, but it was a good attempt regardless.
Yeah. I think we're pretty good too, because
One
one of the
pound
walls
of
still
food-
has the lath and plaster, so she's probably going through lath and everything. So it'll be fine.
It'll hold up. Till it doesn't.
Yeah. As with all things.